Can a chainsaw-wielding, leather jacket-wearing libertarian actually fix one of the most broken economies in the world? Meet Javier Milei, Argentina's most eccentric president, who's turning fiscal chaos into surplus and slashing inflation like never before. Is his radical approach just what Argentina needs, or is it a recipe for disaster? Argentina is a nation of vast natural resources and a rich cultural heritage that has been struggling with economic turmoil for decades. Once one of the world's most wealthiest countries, Argentina's economy has faced a roller coaster of up and downs, marked by hyperinflation, soaring debt, and recurring recessions. In the late 20th century, Argentina's economy was hit pretty hard by hyperinflation, reaching an astronomical 20,000% in the 80s. So if you thought 2022 was bad, just imagine. The government tried various strategies to stabilize the economy, but the cycle of boom and bust just continued. Fast forward to the 21st century, and the situation hasn't really improved much. In recent years, inflation rates have consistently been among the highest in the world, peaking at over 140% annually. The national debt has ballooned, the poverty rates have soared, leaving nearly half the population below the poverty line. These economic woes have led to widespread social unrest and frequent protests, with Argentinians taking to the street to demand better living conditions and government accountability. But how did Argentina get here? What went wrong? Argentina's economic struggles can be traced back to several key factors. The first is chronic fiscal mismanagement. Government spending has often outpaced revenue, leading to massive budget deficits and a reliance on borrowing. This has resulted in a national debt that continues to grow, putting immense pressure on the economy. The second is persistent inflation. The government's tendency to print money to finance deficits has led to runaway inflation, eroding the value of the peso and reducing purchasing power for ordinary Argentinians. Thirdly, protectionist trade policies. Over the years, Argentina has implemented various trade barriers which is intended to protect domestic industries. But these policies have often backfired, reducing Argentinian competitiveness and limiting access to foreign markets. Fourth and finally, regulatory burdens. Extensive regulations and bureaucratic red tape have stifled entrepreneurship and innovation, making it difficult for businesses to thrive and contribute to economic growth. It kind of feels like Europe. These policies, combined with external shocks and political instability, have created a perfect storm, trapping Argentina in a cycle of economic instability and hardship. But a few years ago, a new figure emerged on the Argentinian political scene, promising to turn things around.
Here's Johnny!
Enter Javier Milei, an eccentric libertarian economist with radical ideas and a, let's say, unorthodox approach. But can he really fix what's been broken for so long? Milei is by no means an ordinary politician. He got known for his flamboyant personality and unconventional methods, and he captured the imagination of Argentinians with his radical approach to economics and governance. To exemplify this radical approach, he was often seen wielding a chainsaw at rallies to symbolize his intent to cut government waste. And that tells you he's as much of a showman as he is an economist. His leather jacket and wild hair have become his trademarks, setting him apart in a political landscape filled with traditional suits and ties. But who's the man behind the marketing? He was born in Buenos Aires and he studied economics at the prestigious University of Belgrano and later earned a master's degree in economics and economic sciences. He made a name for himself as an economist, author, and media personality, known best for his fierce criticism of Argentina's economic policies and his advocacy for libertarian principles. Libertarian principles in this context means that he wants to keep the state as small as possible. Milei's rise to fame was fueled by his outspoken views and his ability to connect with ordinary Argentinians frustrated by years of economic mismanagement. He argues that the root of Argentina's problems lie in excessive government intervention and a bloated public sector. All of this is starting to remind me of a certain other politician. He's not quite the Donald, but his platform is built on a foundation of free market principles, advocating for drastic cuts to public spending, deregulation, and reducing the size of government. He even proposes pretty radical measures such as dollarizing the economy, meaning removing the Argentinian peso, and shutting down Argentina's central bank. But how did this eccentric economist transition from media personality to the highest office in the land? Milei's political journey began with his formation of the Liberty Advances, or La Libertad Avanza party, which quickly generated traction among voters disillusioned with traditional politics. By the way, can I just comment on how awesome that Spanish was? Thank you. Thank you. And his campaign, which was marked by pretty fiery rhetorics and bold promises, resonated well with a public desperate for change. And in a stunning upset, Milei was elected president, riding a wave of popular support and promising to usher in a new wave of economic freedom and prosperity. And what did Milei do when he won his first election? The first thing he did was to actually thank his dogs. Yes, I'm 100% serious. After winning, Milei thanked his 5 dogs, Conan the Mastiff, and the 4 clones of that now dead dog, who are named Murray, Milton, Robert, and Lucas, after famous economists. This video isn't about dogs, I promise, but this is just too ridiculous to not mention. The journalist Juan Luis Gonzalez, who wrote Milei's unauthorized biography, said that Conan was like a son to the politician. Milei has said this himself, as well that the other dogs are his grandchildren. And he also claimed that it was Conan, Conan the Mastiff, not the Barbarian, who gave him the mission to be president. And in interviews, he's also said that dogs are the best strategists in the world, and that they advise him on various issues. Dogs aside, Milei's presidency represents a pretty dramatic shift in Argentina's political and economic landscape. But the question remains, can his radical ideas truly bring about the change that Argentina so desperately needs? To answer that, we need to look at the policies that he promised to enact and the early results of his administration. Okay, so what are some of the policies that Milei promised to enact? First, he promised to drastically cut public spending. He believes that the government is too large and inefficient, consuming resources that could be better utilized by the private sector. His plan involves reducing the number of government ministries, slashing bureaucratic positions, and eliminating redundant public programs. Secondly, he aims to deregulate the economy. Milei argues that excessive regulations stifle innovation and entrepreneurship, making it difficult for businesses to grow and create jobs. His administration has already begun rolling back numerous regulations in key sectors such as energy, agriculture, and manufacturing. Third, Milei has proposed reducing taxes to stimulate economic activity. He contends that lower taxes will leave more money in the hands of individuals and businesses, encouraging investment and spending. His tax reform plan includes cutting corporate taxes, reducing personal income tax rates, and eliminating several smaller taxes altogether. One of Milei's most controversial proposals is to dollarize the economy, and he believes that adopting the US dollar as Argentina's official currency will stabilize the economy, curb inflation, and restore investor confidence. This move would involve phasing out the Argentine peso and transitioning all transactions to dollars. Finally, Milei has called for a closure of Argentina's central bank. He argues that the central bank has been a major contributor to the country's inflation problem by printing money to finance government deficits. By shutting it down, Milei aims to prevent future monetary mismanagement. These policies represent a pretty dramatic departure from Argentina's traditional economic approaches. But how are they being received by the public and by the markets? And more importantly, are they working? Initial signs show mixed results. On one hand, Milei's aggressive cuts to public spending have significantly reduced the budget deficit. By slashing state subsidies for fuel and transportation, halving the number of government ministries, and not renewing thousands of public employee contracts, he has made some pretty significant strides in fiscal discipline. This has led to Argentina's inflation rate dropping from one of the highest in the world to single-digit levels, a major achievement that has exceeded everyone's expectations. The financial markets have reacted positively. Investor confidence has been boosted, with Argentine shares and bonds rising in value. The International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, has praised Argentina, noting that the economy is better than expected and is firmly back on track. And I'm pretty sure that's the first time that the IMF has ever said anything positive about Argentina. However, these fiscal measures come at a pretty high social cost. Poverty rates have surged dramatically, with reports indicating that poverty rose from 45% to 57%, and that child poverty is predicted to climb from 62% to 70%. The austerity measures have hit the most vulnerable populations the hardest, exacerbating social inequality and fueling widespread discontent. Public opinion on Milei's administration is deeply divided. Supporters argue that his radical approach is necessary to break free from decades of economic mismanagement. They believe that Milei's policies will lead to sustainable growth and long-term prosperity. Critics, however, warn that Milei's drastic measures could backfire. The legislative challenges that he faces, like the halving of his omnibus reform bill by Congress, highlight significant opposition to his approach. Furthermore, his reliance on emergency decrees and the push for dollarization are seen as risky and potentially destabilizing moves. Milei even said this himself: the pain is going to get worse before it gets better. But as Argentina navigates this period of transformation, the nation stands at a crossroads. Will Milei's radical reforms succeed in revitalizing Argentina's economy, or are they a recipe for disaster? Only time will tell if these sacrifices will lead to long-term gains or to deepen the existing crises. Milei's unorthodox methods and bold policies have sparked both hope and controversy in Argentina. The early results of his administration are mixed, and the nation remains divided on whether his approach will lead to long-term prosperity or further instability. One thing is certain about Milei: he is very aware of Argentina's problems. And if you want to watch a video about a place that isn't that aware of their problems, watch this video about Europe, which is failing fast.